The park was nearly empty when he noticed her, a small girl, no older than 6, sitting alone on a frozen swing, boots brushing the snow. The winter wind swallowed her quiet sobs as people passed without stopping. A single father in his late 30s, holding his son's hand, knew he couldn't walk away. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. The wind cut sharply through Grant Park, carrying loose snow across the frozen ground like ash. The city lights of Chicago glowed beyond the trees, distant and indifferent, while most parents hurried past the playground, collars up, eyes forward, eager to get home. Michael Turner hadn't meant to stop there. Winter evenings were about efficiency: pick up his 8-year-old son, Noah, from after-school care, walk a little, go home, eat leftovers. Life as a single father left no room for unnecessary detours. But Noah slowed. "Dad," he said quietly, tightening his grip on Michael's hand. "She's alone." Michael followed his son's gaze. A small girl sat on a swing, her boots barely touching the frozen ground. The chains creaked softly as the wind nudged her back and forth. She wore a thin pink coat that looked like it belonged to autumn, not December. Her hands were tucked deep into her sleeves, shoulders rounded inward, eyes fixed on the park entrance. She wasn't playing. She was waiting. Michael felt a familiar heaviness settle in his chest, the same feeling that always came when he saw something fragile being ignored. He scanned the park. No frantic parent. No one calling her name. Just people passing, choosing not to see. He crouched a few steps away. "Hey there," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The girl startled slightly, then nodded too fast. "My mom said she'd be back." "When?" Michael asked. She shrugged, lips trembling. "After she made a phone call." Noah edged closer to his dad. "It's really cold," he whispered, more to Michael than to the girl. Michael nodded. He reached into his coat and pulled out a granola bar, handing it over slowly so she wouldn't be scared. "What's your name?" "Ella," she said, taking it like it was the most important thing she'd held all day. "I'm Michael. This is Noah." Noah offered a small, crooked smile. Michael stood, decision already forming despite the warning bells in his head. Leaving her here wasn't an option. Calling the police felt too big, too final, for a situation that still had hope inside it. "Do you know where you live, Ella?" She nodded. "I can show you." They walked to Michael's car parked beneath a streetlight haloed with snow. Inside, the heater hummed to life. Ella's shivering eased, though she stayed very still, like movement might break something. Noah leaned toward her. "My dad fixes stuff," he said proudly. "He'll help." Michael glanced at his son in the rearview mirror, heart tightening. Ella gave directions in a soft voice, past the closed laundromat, down a narrow street lined with old brick houses. The farther they drove, the darker it got. Finally, she pointed. "That one." The house looked tired. A porch light flickered unevenly, and one upstairs window glowed weakly. Michael parked and hesitated, every instinct alert. He walked with both children up the steps. Before he could knock, the door flew open. A woman stood there, pale and shaken, eyes wide with panic that instantly collapsed into relief when she saw Ella. "Oh my God," the woman gasped, pulling the girl into her arms. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Michael froze. He knew that voice. The woman looked up, recognition slamming into her face like a wave. Michael. His throat tightened. Rachel. His sister, whom he hadn't seen in nearly 10 years, stood before him, holding the child she'd left in the cold. Noah looked up, confused. "Dad, who is she?" Michael didn't answer. The porch light flickered again, and in that unsteady glow, the past came rushing back, unfinished, unforgiving, and suddenly impossible to ignore. The porch light blinked once more before settling into a weak, steady glow. Snow whispered against the steps. For a moment, none of them moved. Rachel stood frozen in the doorway, arms wrapped tightly around Ella, as if letting go would make her disappear again. Her face was thinner than Michael remembered, sharper around the edges, like life had been sanding her down for years. Her eyes flicked from Michael to Noah, then back again, shame rising fast. I didn't think it would be you," she said hoarsely. "Of all people." Michael swallowed. His instincts told him to step back, to protect the fragile order he'd built for his son. But another instinct, older, heavier, kept him rooted in place. "It's freezing," he said finally. "Can we go inside?" Rachel hesitated, then nodded quickly, stepping aside. "Of course. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking." The house smelled faintly of cold air and burned toast. A space heater hummed loudly in the corner of the living room, fighting a losing battle against the draft seeping through old windows. Michael noticed the loose lock on the door, the cracked trim, the way the couch sagged in the middle. Signs of someone barely keeping things together. Ella climbed onto the couch, curling in on herself. Noah sat beside her without being asked, pulling crayons from his backpack like it was the most natural thing in the world. They didn't speak much, just colored quietly, sharing space. Michael watched them, something in his chest easing. Rachel hovered near the kitchen doorway, wringing her hands. "I had to make a call," she said quickly, words tumbling out. "The landlord, he gave me until tonight. I thought I'd be gone 10 minutes. I didn't have anyone else." "You left her alone in the park," Michael said, not accusing, just stating the fact. Rachel flinched. I know. Her voice broke. "I've been sober for 3 years, Michael. 3. I do everything right and it's still never enough." Michael leaned against the counter, exhaustion settling into his bones. He remembered late-night calls that never came, apologies that arrived years too late. He remembered choosing distance because it hurt less than hope. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked quietly. Rachel laughed, bitter and small. "You made a life. A good one. I didn't want to be the wreck that drags you back." Michael exhaled slowly. Anger was there, but it was tangled with something else now. Understanding, maybe. Or responsibility. He rolled up his sleeves and moved without another word. He tightened the loose lock, taped plastic over a cracked window, fixed the flickering porch light so it stayed on. Then he heated soup, setting bowls on the table like this was just another evening. Rachel watched him from the doorway, tears sliding down her face. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Michael glanced at the kids, bent over their drawings, heads nearly touching. "Because I didn't stop for you once," he said. "I'm not doing that again." Outside, the wind howled, but inside the small house, warmth slowly began to take hold, not from the heater, but from something steadier, harder earned. For the first time in years, the Turner family sat under the same roof, unsure of the future, but no longer facing it alone. Morning came slowly, filtered through gray winter light and the soft hiss of snow against the windows. Michael woke before the kids, as he always did. For a moment, he forgot where he was, then the unfamiliar couch beneath him and the hum of the space heater pulled him back. Rachel's house was quiet in a way that came from exhaustion, not peace. He rose carefully and walked the perimeter, noting what needed fixing the way his mind always did: loose hinges, a leaky radiator, a deadbolt that didn't fully catch. Problems with solutions. He liked those. They stayed solved when you handled them right. In the kitchen, he found a stack of unopened envelopes on the counter. Past due notices. Final warnings. A folded eviction notice dated 2 days earlier. Michael closed his eyes briefly, then put the papers back exactly where they were. Rachel's story hadn't been exaggeration. Rachel appeared in the doorway, hair messy, eyes wary. You don't have to stay, she said, as if daring him to leave. I know, Michael replied. But I am. She poured coffee into chipped mugs, hands shaking slightly. Derek called last night. I didn't answer. Michael stiffened. Derek Lawson. Rachel nodded. He says he wants to help. Her mouth twisted. He always says that. Michael remembered Derek's smile, too easy, too practiced. He remembered police visits, whispered apologies, bruises explained away. Back then, Michael had believed Rachel when she said she had it under control. That lie had lasted years. What does he want? Michael asked. Ella, Rachel said quietly. He says he has paperwork now. Custody. That if I don't cooperate, he'll make sure she's taken. Michael felt something hard settle in his chest. Does he? Rachel shook her head. I don't think so. But I don't know enough to be sure. Noah wandered in then, rubbing his eyes, followed by Ella in oversized socks. The kids climbed onto chairs like this was already routine. Michael watched them share cereal, saw how naturally Noah handed Ella the spoon first. A knot he hadn't known was there loosened slightly. We'll check the papers, Michael said firmly. Not him. The courthouse. Legal aid. Rachel's eyes filled. You do that? Yes. Later, as the kids colored at the table again, Michael made calls during his lunch break. Legal aid confirmed what he'd suspected, no custody filing, no court order, just intimidation wrapped in official-sounding language. He's bluffing, Michael told Rachel when he hung up. And we won't let him scare you. Rachel covered her face with both hands. I keep thinking if I mess up once, everything disappears. Michael thought of his own nights, budget spreadsheets, second jobs, quiet fear masked as control. Different paths, same pressure. You're still standing, he said. That counts. A knock rattled the door. Rachel froze. Michael stood, calm but alert. Through the window, he saw a familiar shape, tall, coat too nice for the neighborhood, smile already in place. Derek. Michael opened the door just enough to block the frame with his body. You're not welcome here, he said evenly. Derek's smile faltered. I just came to see my daughter. You can leave, Michael replied. Or I can call someone who'll make you. Derek's eyes slid past him toward the living room, where the kids sat. His jaw tightened. This isn't over. Michael didn't raise his voice. It is for today. He shut the door firmly, locking it this time. Rachel exhaled shakily behind him. The house felt steadier after that, not safe yet, but stronger. Outside, snow continued to fall, erasing old footprints while new ones formed. Michael looked at his sister and knew one thing for certain, whatever came next, he wasn't walking away again. The rest of the day unfolded in careful pieces, like glass set back together with patience instead of glue. Derek didn't return, but his absence didn't bring peace, just a tight, watchful quiet that settled over the house. Michael stayed. He called his office and took a personal day without explanation. Then he drove Rachel to the legal aid clinic downtown while a neighbor, an older woman with sharp eyes and a gentle voice, agreed to watch the kids for an hour. Snow clung to the streets, turning traffic into a slow procession of red lights and sighs. Inside the clinic, Michael sat beside his sister as she spoke to a caseworker, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles went white. He didn't interrupt. He didn't correct. He let her tell her story in her own words. When the caseworker asked about support, Michael spoke only once. I'm here, he said. And I'm not leaving. The words surprised him with their weight. They left with a temporary protection order in motion, referrals for housing assistance, and a list of steps that felt long, but real. Rachel held the papers like they might vanish if she loosened her grip. Back at the house, Michael fixed what he could. He installed a new deadbolt, sealed the drafty window, tightened the porch rail. Each repair made the place feel less temporary, more defended. Rachel cooked dinner from whatever was left in the fridge, apologizing for the simplicity until Michael shook his head. "This is fine," he said. "It's enough." After dinner, Noah asked if Ella could see his room, just for a minute. Michael hesitated, then nodded. They sat on the floor with a blanket, the kids leaning against each other, drawing the same house over and over, smoke curling from the chimney, a bright square for the porch light. Later, when the kids slept, Rachel stood in the doorway of the living room, arms folded tight. "I didn't ask you to be my savior," she said quietly. "I'm not," Michael replied. "I'm your brother." She nodded, swallowing. "I kept thinking you'd hate me." Michael looked at the window, at the snow drifting past. "I hated what happened," he said. "I hated that I didn't know how to help without breaking myself." Rachel's shoulders sagged. "I'm scared all the time." "I know," he said. "Me too." They stood there, not touching, but not distant either, two adults finally telling the truth without trying to win. Outside, the porch light burned steady against the dark, no longer flickering. Michael made a plan that night. Short term, stay the week, help stabilize. Long term, childcare overlap, budgeting, court dates, therapy referrals. He wrote it all down, neat columns and timelines. Rachel watched from the couch, eyes wet. "You don't have to fix everything," she said. "I won't," he replied. "But I'll fix what's mine." As the house settled into sleep, Michael felt the old pull to leave, to keep life simple, contained. Instead, he stayed on the couch, listening to the heater hum and the snow soften the city. Winter pressed in, relentless as ever. But inside that small house, something had shifted, less fragile now, anchored by choice. Tomorrow would bring more work. More fear. Maybe more confrontation. But tonight, the doors were locked, the light was on, and the family, fractured as it was, had decided to hold. The next morning arrived quieter than Michael expected. Snow still fell, but lighter now, like it was finally losing its argument with the city. The house felt different when he woke, less like a shelter, more like a place where people intended to stay. Rachel was already up, sitting at the table with a notebook open, carefully copying dates and phone numbers from the papers they'd collected. She looked tired, but there was focus in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "I called the clinic," she said when she noticed him. "And the housing office. I didn't hang up this time." Michael nodded, approving without making a show of it. Progress didn't need applause. It needed consistency. Later that morning, Derek tried again. This time he didn't knock. He shouted from the sidewalk, voice sharp and rehearsed, accusing Rachel of keeping Ella from him, threatening police, courts, consequences. The neighbors' curtains twitched. Michael stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't insult. He simply held up the phone. "I'm recording," he said. "You're violating a pending protection order. Leave." Derek sneered. "You think you can scare me?" Michael met his gaze steadily. "No. I think you scare yourself." Something in Derek's expression cracked, not fear, but the realization that his usual tools weren't working. He backed away, muttering, then disappeared down the street. Rachel watched from the window, hands pressed to the glass. When she turned, she was shaking, but standing. "That's the last time," she said, more to herself than to Michael. "It will be," he replied. "Because now you're not alone." That afternoon, Michael packed his things. Noah protested quietly, hugging Ella before they left. "I'll come back," he promised, serious as only children could be. "You don't have to," Rachel said to Michael at the door. "You've done enough." Michael looked around, the fixed locks, the sealed windows, the calendar on the fridge marked with next steps. "This isn't about enough," he said. It's about breaking patterns. Rachel nodded slowly. As Michael drove away with Noah asleep in the back seat, the city stretched out before him, cold, loud, indifferent as ever. But something inside him felt steadier. He hadn't fixed everything. He hadn't erased the past. He had simply chosen to stay when it mattered. That winter didn't magically become easier. There were court dates. Missed calls. Relapses narrowly avoided. But there were also routines. Shared meals. Lights left on. Weeks later, Michael drove past Rachel's house again. The porch light glowed warm against the dusk, steady and bright. He slowed, just for a moment, then continued on. Some families were built by birth. Others by choice. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person could do wasn't walking away from the past, but standing in front of it, calm and unafraid, and saying, "This ends here." Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.